For those of you who don't know, I live in Johannesburg in South Africa. So it is our spring now, and we've just had, for the last few days, our first spring rain. You can see it's still slightly overcast. So what's been happening over the last couple of months is I posted a video a few months ago about us taking down all these trees, and I now turned this patch, or this bed, into a Rooster Potato Bed. So what I've done is we cleared the tree. So we cleared the trees out, and then put down a couple of bags of compost, and then put down all the straw, and then we planted some potatoes in the middle of winter. And then in spring these all started to come up. So probably we planted a few more last week, just a couple of different varieties. But I guesstimate we've probably got about 80 or 90 potato plants that will eventually come up, or hopefully all come up. Now you can see that these have started to come up very nicely. And this weekend what we did is we banked them up with some more straw so that we can get a fairly deep potato harvest per plant. And you can see that I'm actually getting some flowers over there. So these are the normal store-bought potatoes that had developed eyes, which I then just kept one side and then planted. So that's what this is looking like at the moment. I'm very pleased with this, and I'm excited to see what kind of harvest we get out of this. Okay, then moving over here, these are the four of the original potato planters that I had made, and have now planted some new varieties of potatoes in there, 4 in each one, see how they come out. And then the others I'm using for other vegetables, and that's got a sweet potato growing in here. And this is a new strawberry planter that I've done. I took some cuttings and runners from my existing strawberry plant, which I'll show you just now, and planted this. And it won't do anything this year, but it'll build up quite a nice solid bed, and then hopefully by spring next year I'll get some more. Then over here, this is my cooler weather crops. It's my lettuce bed and my salad bed. It's only got these at the moment, but I am germinating some more. And then this is really interesting. These two plants over here, you can see that that's a carrot plant that's now gone to seed. What I did is I did an experiment where I took carrots that I'd cut and I just planted the tops in the hopes of getting some seeds, because carrots only seed after the second year. So I figured, well, let me try this and see if it works. And it's definitely worked with that one over there. Okay, moving on. So this is a new bed of eggplants, the Black Beauty eggplants, and then this is just a mix-up bed at the moment. I've let this particularly grow. Look how big it is, because I want the seeds. So we'll see how that turns out. That's the celery. The celery's gone berserk in my garden, but some of it is bolting already, so I'm going to have to replant some new ones. Okay, and then this is still my mixed up bed. This is, funny enough, a bed that does very, very well for me. Everything grows really well. So I've got a row of onions in there, which are starting to grow quite nicely, and I'll wait for them to get big. I planted them at the wrong time, but because we live in such a temperate climate, it's pretty warm. We don't get very cold winters, so a lot of the stuff survives over winter. And then I planted some more carrots over there just to get carrots as and when I'm needing them. And then this bed over here, which I've got covered with a shade cloth, is going to become my herb bed. And the reason why I've got it covered with a shade cloth is because we get such hot summers that everything just dies. So things like basil and parsley and cilantro all just get crushed by the heat. So putting a shade cloth on, even in spring, because we get some very hot days, helps protect them. Then this is my seed bed. I planted a lot of mix and match stuff in here, and a lot of it's gone to seed, so I'm just leaving it. So now these are colored carrots that you can see. Take a look at that beautiful flower, and that'll generate a whole lot of seeds for me. And then this is beetroot that's now gone to seed. Take a look. How cool is that? And then this is a perpetual spinach. So it has that kind of leaf over there, but that's the seeds that is coming out. Okay. So now over here you can see my strawberry bed, which is doing very, very well, and I've got a lot of really nice strawberries coming out of that. So what I did is I took out all the small beds that I had against those walls over there, and I had 2 new big beds put in, that one over there behind the strawberries and this one here. And I cleared out all the beds and I put new compost down, and then I covered them with straw. And the reason being is I want to focus very strongly on tomatoes and peppers this year. You know, they grow quite well, very well during our summer, but again I'm going to be testing out different varieties, some under shade cloth, some of them not under shade cloth. This bed will also be ultimately cleared. This is kale, which my housekeeper Suku loves very much, so we plant quite a bit of this, and I planted more kale at the back, which I'll show you. So all of these beds are going to be tomato and pepper beds, and then some in the front, and I have that bed over there. Now that bed doesn't get a lot of sun, so I'm going to test out some shade tolerant plants over there. And this is also a bit of a mixture bed. Again, it's going to be cleaned up, but I do have one artichoke growing in here, and I'm going to let it grow and see what it comes out like. I have never tasted them before. Okay, so now here I'm moving into my work area. I have my little greenhouse which keeps mostly of my stuff that dry from the rain. I've got a couple of bins, one for the chicken food, which you can see over here, and that's now a laying hen food caution. Then this is going to be for germination soil and things like that, which I'm busy doing over there, which I've just kept covered to stop it from getting rain. And then those crates are going to be used for me to put my soil blocks in, like I've got over here. So I got myself a soil blocker. It took me literally a year to find a soil blocker in South Africa, and I finally found one website in South Africa that did them, and it's completely revolutionized the way I do my planting now. So I'm going to be planting soil blocks into those crates over there so that I can move them around and get them into the sun. But if we have a heavy thunderstorm, I can just stack them on top of each other and move them into an area where they're not going to get hammered by the rain. These are just some asparagus plants that I bought that I want to add to my collection at the back. I know it's going to take a few years before I get anything out, but that's the general idea. Okay, so here I've got some sweet corn on the go. I can't remember what I've got all in here. It's all in my gardening journal. But those are some lettuces and salad stuff. And then there's some more beetroot coming, because we can plant beetroot pretty much all year. I succession plant the beetroot. Alright, moving on to here, I've got a whole lot of peppers that are slowly coming up. This is patty pans, which is a squash. 3 of them germinated. These are little gem squash plants, which I'm really pleased about. And over here in those 6 pots I've got watermelon and melon seeds. Over here, so I've got some jalapenos, some habaneros, some mini bells, and a couple of others that I've planted. And I've got some bean bushes over here. And these are all my different tomato varieties that I'm busy sprouting at the moment, or not sprouting, germinating. And when they're a bit bigger, I'll move them into the beds. There's some basil and celery from my cousin, which is really cool. I've got some Romanesca broccoli, which grows all year here, and some more peppers, and then I've got my start of my sunflowers over here, and then obviously I've got some parsley. Then over here I've got baby marrows, 3 baby marrow plants that have germinated, which I'm really thrilled about. And once they're a bit bigger, I'll move them into the beds at the back. And then this was just an experiment. I started trying out with microgreens, but they got a bit moldy, so I just took the lids off and let them sprout. And then what I'll do is I'll just give them to the chickens as they are when they're a bit bigger, and give them some food for that. So I have 5 back asterops, and at the moment they're giving me about 4 eggs a day, which is really cool. I have one hen that's very sick over there, as you can see, and I've really been battling to get her sorted out. She's got a bacterial infection, as you can see on her face. She's very swollen. So I've been putting aloe vera into their water, and she gets a a daily dose of antibiotic through a syringe. But I really don't know what to do with her at the moment. She's battling. She eats and drinks and everything. She's just not laying, and she's obviously in a great deal of discomfort. And then obviously on the floor I've got this wood shavings, the deep litter bedding, which works very well. This has now been in for 6 months and there's not a single smell in this place, which I'm really pleased about, because in an urban environment it's really difficult to keep chickens without annoying your neighbors with the smell or the noise. And black ash dwarfs are very quiet normally, but this deep litter bedding is working like an absolute bomb. Yeah, I've planted a few fruit trees. Some of them have started to get some leaves and that. Not all of them is going to produce fruit this first year, and I'll show you some of them just now. So this is a pear tree, but there were no blossoms, so I'm not expecting any fruit this year. This is my apple tree. Now this is really weird. It got a whole bunch of leaves halfway down the tree and nothing else at the top. I'm not expecting anything major from this apple tree. My orange tree has developed a few flowers, so we might see a bit of fruit this year. And then what's really exciting is that my plum tree has developed some fruit. I think I've got about 7 or 8 plums on here. It will be nice to see if I can harvest them by the end of the year. And then here's a peach tree which has 2 little peaches, which is so exciting. You can see them over there. So this is the new bed over here. We started this in the middle of winter. What I've done over here is I've got white grapes and red grapes growing in a container, and the idea is to get them to go over this trellis over here, so it'll make a nice entrance to the garden. And you can see over here I've got my first little grapes developing, which is really cool. Okay, so along this bed now we put straw, and we planted a whole row of potatoes down the front of this. They're a different breed of potatoes, so I want to see, or different variety of potatoes, so I want to see how they turn out. And here I've got some runner beans that are climbing up the fence. The idea is to use this fence as a trellis for a lot of the plants. It was doing very well with my peas over here, but unfortunately my dogs got in and trashed the garden and trashed my onions to a certain extent as well. And this is my broccoli growing over here, and then this is all my carrots. And I sowed these carrots with a method that I learned on YouTube, where you mix them up with a mixture of what you guys call cornstarch and water, and cooked it up into a slurry and then piped them out into rows, and that was quite effective. So this is my cabbage patch at the moment, but it's looking a bit scraggly, apart from the fact that the Chinese cabbage that I grow for the chickens primarily has bolted. And I think it's also because it's a cold weather crop, and we're in spring, but it's already so hot it's unbelievable. So it doesn't do well, so I'll probably have to grow some more in the shade. And then my cabbages are looking a bit scraggly because we have a big bird in South Africa called the hardy-dar, and it comes along digging for earthworms, and this ground is now so rich in earthworms. When we were making the holes for the potatoes down here, it was unreal. Every time we made a hole there were like 6 or 7 earthworms. So I'm very pleased with the quality of the soil. And then this bed over here is going to be for the watermelons and melons, and I've put down weed cloth so that it doesn't get messy. Because we have such wet summers and hot summers, the plants seem to go quite mushy in a way. They get moldy and things like that. So I'm hoping that this will change things and give me a decent crop of melons and squashes. So over here's my compost pile, which we've just finished turning over. And what we've done is, that's a whole lot of cow manure and horse manure that we're now going to just let it rot by itself and then turn into some decent manure. And then we've sifted the compost, and so this is the quality of the compost that you get, which is really cool, which I will then put into bags and then use in the garden. But I will also sift it down again to a very fine qualities that I can use for my potting soil that I make myself. And I'll do a video sometime on how I do that. Oh, and here's something really funny I have to tell you. So I've had incredibly bad luck with cucumbers. Last year when I grew a cucumber, it turned out to be a rhino horn cucumber, which was hysterical. It looked a bit like the coronavirus. It was so spiky. So this time I planted what I thought were English cucumbers, and this plant came up, and I thought, okay, well, that's really interesting. I've never seen a cucumber plant like that. But it shows my ignorance, because it's not a cucumber plant. It's in fact a broad bean plant. So it's growing a whole lot of broad beans. You can see over here, there's a broad bean. So, you know, you're never too old to learn, and it's hilarious. So we'll see how these turn out. But I'm going to have to plant some more cucumber seeds now and see how they germinate, and then I'm going to be putting them onto that other bed, and I'll show you now. So this is going to be primarily my pumpkin and squash bed. So you'll see that those are butternuts that have already started growing very nicely. Over here will be all the patty pans and gem squashes, and over there is going to be the baby marrows and that. And then in the back section I've planted more kale. 2 different varieties. Again, the hardy dars are zapping it. You can see if you look into the soil very carefully. I'm going to show you a hole. So they're very big birds. They're probably about the size of a duck with these long beaks, and they come in here digging for earthworms. So they actually pull out some of the seedlings. And there I've got a volunteer potato, which is hilarious. So this is spinach and baby spinach that I've grown along here. And then we've got some more kale coming out over there. And then at the back over there I'm going to be putting my sweet corn and my sunflowers, and I'm going to be popping the sunflowers all over the place. So that's pretty much in a nutshell. It's so now that we've had our first spring rain, I think in the next couple of weeks this garden's actually going to explode. And I can see the difference with my seedlings that I planted. Just how much quicker, how quick. Could you guys give it a rest? And these are my dogs. I have 4 dogs and an extra one who actually belongs to my daughter. They're very sweet. And they also keep me safe, which is a good thing. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the tour. I'm hoping that's one of the disadvantages of living in an urban area, is the cars coming past. So my goal with this garden is, 1, to provide a lot of food for my family and I over the next couple of months, and then also have food for Suku and Richard, my housekeeper and gardener that work for me, because my housekeeper's got a lot of kids to look after, not only her own but her sisters and brothers. So my goal is to give her enough food to feed all of them, and then learning how to, well, I have started learning how to ferment and things like that, and how to store the food. I'd like to get a bit more serious about this. I mean, I think I've got pretty serious now. If I could turn this whole garden into a vegetable patch, I would love to, but unfortunately, you know, when you live in a rented property, you're not at liberty to completely turn the place into a food forest. But we'll see how it goes. Anyway, thank you for joining me, and I'll give you an update in a couple of days or so.